Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. I hope you guys are ready to make it weird because I'm just back from going to Oklahoma wild boar hunting at Black Mountain. If you guys want to make it weird and support the channel, you can check out TexGrebnerOutdoors.com and use the code WEIRD from now until the end of 2018 on all your Tex Grebner Outdoors merchandise for a 20% off discount. Also, if you would like to get a discount at Three Rivers Archery Supplies, you can use the discount code of Tex Grebner. Now, I have always wanted to hunt with a spear, and I love hunting wild boar. Now the question is, was I actually able to spear a boar down in Oklahoma? But I also need to take you guys back in time to show you some of the prep work that went into getting ready for this here hunt. So I'm getting ready to head to Oklahoma for this spear hunt, and it's going to be at Black Mountain, which is a high fence hog outfitter. And these are wild hogs. They just happen to have been trapped out of the ecosystem and put into the high fence paddock. I'm not going to pretend like it's not exactly what it is. However, the last boar I got there was full of bird shot because he'd been trapped wild before he went into the enclosure. And I just want to get this out of the way right now that I grew up hunting pheasants that we set out, and we'd set them, walk to the end of the ditch, and then go and try and kick them back up. Most of the time, we didn't even find a single one because we never had a hunting dog. But I also grew up fishing a farm pond, and I admit that fishing a farm pond bass is incredibly different than if I were to go down to Crow Creek and try and fish out a smallmouth out of a wild water. It's still fishing, but it is definitely a different kind of fishing. And so I just want to make it known that, yeah, I believe in fair chase bow hunting, but what I'm doing is not necessarily what you might call a canned hunt, because these pigs are cagey, they're wild. Most of them were born in the wild, taken out of the local ecosystem, and put inside the enclosure, and these things get shot at every day. Now, I am hopeful of getting it done with the spear. Now, again, it's going to be a high fence hunt. Going to probably be hunting over feeders out of tree stands. But now that I've been there and experienced it, I wouldn't really call it a canned hunt. The next question is spear hunting ethical? And it's kind of a two-part answer. The spear is not a high percentage weapon, but it is incredibly devastating when it hits. So it is ethical within its scope of potential success. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out my range so that I know when I'm out there in the stand where I can actually be ethical with my spear when the pigs come in. The spear is a low percentage weapon for success. It is a high percentage weapon if you actually get the spear into the animal. And so as you can see, I've moved the target in a little bit. The reason that spears are a problem is because it is so violent, it is so primal, and you can't shield yourself from what you're seeing. And because it's so low percentage for success, it defies the simple acquisition of meat when we have more efficient ways of hunting. And it is for sport, truthfully. But you have different questions of ethics. Is something sporting or is it ethical? And the truth is, it is very ethical for somebody to go out and hunt with a rifle, with a scope, inside 200 yards, but not inside of 50 or 20 yards, and take game. That's very ethical. But the question is, are you giving the animal a reasonable chance to detect you and escape you? So we balance this. Is this ethical, and is this ethical? Is this ethical according to giving the animal a clean death with not excessive suffering? And is this sporting? Because in order for something to be done for sport, there needs to be a reasonable sporting chance. And I need to move my target in just a little bit more. Now I use the example of fishing because a farm pond bass and a wild bass out there in a creek somewhere, they're going to be different because you had to find the bass in the creek. But the farm pond bass, you know they're in there because you put them in there. And high fence hunting becomes a lot more problematic when we're talking about native game animal species, because an animal for high fence, if it's native game, has been raised in captivity. It has been selectively bred over generations for trophy quality, and so it's not going to be the same as if it were a product of wild Darwinism, where you didn't know that they were going to be there. And so that's why high fence hunting for native game animals is so problematic, because at that point, it does seem very much like a canned hunt. You know there's trophy deer in here, but now you're going in there like you're fishing a farm pond. But it also becomes interesting in the fishing analogy, because if we're talking about exotics or hogs, an exotic game animal in a high fence hunting ranch isn't a whole lot different than you going to a stream and fishing out a non-native fish that is stocked by the state. So what I've got going on here is a clay bird on top of that target down there at about the same height as where I want my spear to enter the pig. Because it's almost always straight down at an ethical spear range out of a stand, which does make it problematic to figure out your angles of where you actually want the spear to come down. Because a traditional side spot on a target is going to be way too low to actually pass all the way through the vital organs. Is the spear low percentage for success? Yes. Is the spear an ethical method when you use it within its range of success? The answer, unequivocally, is yes. Good angle. Didn't break the clay bird. Damn it, oh to hell. So close. Well, it's Tex Grebner Outdoors after all, so you can count on things not going according to plan or going right. I'm getting all my gear sorted out. I have almost everything found, but I cannot find my monopod for filming on stalks. So I had to get a little bit inventurous. If you've never heard inventurous, it is a combination of inventive and adventurous. So here is a black diamond telescoping trekking pole, lifesaver for train to hunt and any rough terrain. And I use it quite frequently to get down the muddy ass hill to my deer hunting spot. But I have affixed a trail camera head onto the top of this with electrical tape. So I have inventurous myself a monopod for filming stalks down at Black Mountain. Getting my broadheads sharpened, being nervous, and also super excited. If you've ever heard the song Choctaw Bingo, we are now in the Muskogee, Oklahoma Walmart picking up some supplies for the boar hunt. I have no idea what we want to get for in-field snacks. So as it stands right now, this is what the cart looks like here in Walmart. Fiber, meat, eggs, asparagus, caffeine, that's Diet Mountain Dew, creative pig bait. Fruit Loops for pig bait, they're going to be shitting the rainbow.
That's going to be cool on your video. What the fuck is that?
It was your idea. You're the pig hunter. I've been looking forward to this hunt for months, and because I was so woefully unprepared the last time, I decided that I was going to be much more prepared this time now that I knew what I was in for. We stopped and got some creative pig bait. I even fabricated myself some spear holders for this stand because this particular stand is not very good for shooting a bow out of because it's so close. And we hadn't actually counted on the weather being as cold as it was, so I was underdressed and I'd forgot my gloves back in the pickup because I'm me. And it was just super awesome because with the leaves down you could hear everything. It's probably going to suck for stalking on the leaves, but you could hear pigs moving around about 100 yards away. Of course, about dark, this pig started to come into the feeder to the Fruit Loop scent of strawberries, and I got my spear at the ready. I wasn't really sure how this all was going to go down, and I was super nervous about screwing it up. But the pig came in broadside in bow range, but of course I had a spear. And this pig just knew something was up because these critters live in a very active food chain. No sooner did I twitch my head than this pig was on to me and gone. And that was the last of the shooting light. It'll be warm, he said. Don't worry about bringing your coveralls, he said. At least I know that you're going to be as cold as I am because you brought the same style clothes as me. I am basically powered by Copenhagen and Diet Mountain Dew at this point. I have been on the road now for 2 days. My house in north central Illinois to northeastern Kansas, where Tripper picked me up at, and then now we drove from northeastern Kansas to southern Oklahoma today. Got here, got inside the wire for a little while. I am hoping that it does warm up tomorrow, but the good news is if it is cold, it means that the pigs will be really active. The bad news is without snow, the leaves are going to be super crunchy, so I'm not expecting to have much luck stalking pigs tomorrow. But I am hopeful that I will kill with sticks because I've got those cold steel Samburus to where you can shave with them. I'm not kidding you. I am very neurotic about my weaponry. So we have been to Walmart, got our food, and got our pig bait all taken care of because, yeah, sure, we're hunting over corn feeders, but we want to kind of sweeten the deal. You never know. And when you're dealing with a spear, I want that pig where I want that pig, because even if these are pigs that we're dealing with here, they're living, breathing creatures, and you never want to cause unnecessary suffering. So, even though this is a high fence hunt, I am perfectly 100% willing to go home empty-handed, because I don't believe in guarantees. So I'm hoping that it warms up tomorrow, because I didn't pack any of my puffy clothes. But if it doesn't, then I'm just going to have to cowboy up, because that's just the way that it's going to be. And this is Tex Grebner Outdoors, so you can count on nothing really going right. You know, let's go to Oklahoma in December. It'll be a nice warm break from sitting in a cold-ass deer stand up in Illinois for me. That sounds like a good plan. How warm is it supposed to be? Oh, you know, it's going to be about 40 to 50 degrees, says Tripper. I say, okay, don't worry about packing your heavy first light gear. Well, we got down here, and as you've seen, we were wrong, because there was a cold snap. So here I was, sitting in a tree stand over a corn feeder, trying to spear a hog. 19 degrees, sun's coming up, freezing, just bitterly cold. Now, I don't mind cold if I'm dressed for it, but here I am sitting up there in that tree stand, waiting for a hog to come through and hit the feeder, and hopefully get a spear into it, all excited every time a squirrel rustles the leaves and trying to make sure I'm in position, and hogs moving around out in the leaves, well out of even bow range. And all I can think is that I've got $500 worth of First Light Sanctuary bibs and jackets sitting at my house, hundreds of miles away. But I cowboyed up and I stuck it out, because if there's nothing else that I can rely on, I'd rather die than quit. And so I was sitting in the stand and watching the hogs out of range and watching the exotic rams move around the property. When I've got a whole whitetail season, sitting in a stand isn't a big deal, because that's what you do. But when you're hunting against the clock, you can burn a whole lot of time if the pigs ain't moving around where you actually are. And we were about froze stiff, so we figured, what the hell, they might be bedded up. Let's go on a stalk. Gonna get a little bit creative here. Try out these frog tog neoprene boots. See if we can quiet me down a little bit. Naturally, because I'm me, I had to go back down because I forgot that I had them stowed in my pack. So we're going to see if we can't sneak up on a sleeping pig since the woods have gone dead here in the Black Mountain. What we were hoping to do was spot and then put a stalk on a big old lone boar with a bad attitude, because he would be more likely to fight than to run. Stalking a lone pig that's asleep is a whole lot different than trying to put a stalk on a sounder of hogs on potato chip leaves. So we were walking the ranch roads trying to sneak up on a big old boar. Well, it didn't work, but it worked better than expected. And they were actually right in that little pocket right there. We could have just walked another 20 feet. I could have thrown through that window. But no, I had to try and be all fancy and circle upwind. Now, it would be nothing to go in here with a rifle and just limit out on your package. But you could get within compound bow range. But getting within traditional archery range and spear range was next to impossible. But I had a plan that was just dumb enough to work. Finding the pigs wasn't the problem, because it was like fishing a farm pond. We knew they were here. It was getting close enough to them. And so, like Wile E. Coyote, I scrambled up off the ranch road onto these boulders where there were pigs just underneath of them. And it felt so awesome and so primal and so exciting, because it seemed like this is going to be the best possible plan for getting it done with the spear. And I scrambled up and I started making my way around the boulders to throw down onto these unsuspecting hogs. But there were still too many eyes and too many ears, and so as I got closer and closer, they started to move away. And it was a plan that was just dumb enough to have worked, but not quite dumb enough to absolutely work.
But that shit almost worked, dude.
Me scrambling my fat ass up onto a rock. We'd taken most of the day on stalking, trying to stay warm, but the pigs were starting to stage up for the feeders to go off, and so it was time to deploy the secret weapon, the Fruit Loops. This couldn't possibly fail. It smells sweet, it smells delicious. It was all I could do not to just eat half the bag right then and there while I was putting out the bait. But it was a very specific spot because I wanted the pigs to be where I could get a good, clean, ethical kill with the spear. Now, the spear is long, and it needs to leave your hand straight. So, unfortunately, the feeder wasn't exactly positioned where I needed it to be. And so on my right side, because of the tree, I could not throw to my right side because the spear would actually contact the tree. Holding my spear at the ready, it was impossible not to feel the consequences of my actions and the possible outcomes. But the wind was completely against us, and the wind hit the back of my neck and sent those pigs running. The sun was starting to sink down, and it was starting to get colder and colder. But this was going to be my best chance at spearing a hog because the stalks hadn't panned out. And so a pair of sows with their piglets came into the feeder next. I got my spear at the ready, and I'd changed into my winter gloves. Luckily, I'd remembered to pack them. I thought that they were going to hit those Fruit Loops. They'd have to smell them. Everything was set and ready. This skinny sow was behind the corn feeder, and there was a silver sow coming in on my right side. Now, I could have made this shot with a bow, but of course, yet again, the wind hit our necks. That feeder was like a dinner bell, and the hogs were starting to come in hot. I thought about, for a second, getting down and scraping the feed over to where I wanted the hogs to be. But I figured that my Fruit Loops would at least put them in position where I wanted them. It was getting colder and colder, and the sun sinking lower and lower. The thermals had come into my face, so the wind was perfect. It was getting dark, the pigs were getting hungry, and they decided to come in. Spear at the ready, this was going to happen. But, naturally, because Wile E. Coyote is my spirit animal, we learned that, you know what doesn't care about Fruit Loops? Pigs. You know what does love Fruit Loops? Sheep. So I stood up to make a longer throw than what I wanted, and I realized that my arm had turned to water. This hog was pretty much where I wanted him to be, but there was the sheep behind him, and I knew that that was not an ethical throw. When you're hunting with a spear, there are consequences, and there are no fail-safes. Working completely without a net, I can either make a good throw, I can make a bad throw and give an animal an agonizing death, or I can completely miss. Now, it's not like I'm going to starve if I don't make a good throw, but there are consequences. And the appeal of hunting with a primitive weapon like a spear is that there are no fail-safes. and that the consequences are much higher than what they normally would be. It's almost like a violent interpretation of Zen Buddhism and the search for enlightenment, that while I'm not going to starve and we're not dealing with woolly rhinos here, that I am feeling what they felt. And definitely found out that sheep, really expensive sheep, love Fruit Loops. So I suppose, and this is morally shaky by the way, Fruit Loops might be a good Dole sheep backpacking food. I don't know. Don't take that too seriously, but I know that Texas Dole sheep really do love Fruit Loops. The idea with the Fruit Loops was to make sure that we got the pigs in my spear lane, because the spear is so long that when I would try and turn toward the feeder, it would come in contact with the tree, and I was afraid if I made a throw that wasn't perfectly straight ahead, that it wouldn't hit where I wanted it to. And as an aspiring spear hunter, I feel like I need to absolutely be solid in my throwing ethics and not take any chances. And so the only broadside shot that I had near the feeder, not only did I bring my spear back up and basically stick the back end of it into a tree limb, but there was a sheep in the general vicinity, and if you throw a 2-pound cold steel Samburu spear through a pig that size, it's literally going to get a full pass through. And so I wasn't taking any chances. The general idea with the Fruit Loops was we wanted to make sure we gave the pigs something that they could not resist to get them where I wanted them to. And apparently, sheep love Fruit Loops. Also, gonna go out in the morning for the last day of the hunt. I am not geared up for the cold weather. I have $500 worth of First Light puffy gear at my house right now in central Illinois. And so we're going to try doing morning stalking until the sun gets up and it gets to be less miserable out. I was hoping this wasn't going to be an 11th hour kind of thing. This is Tex Grebner Outdoors, so apparently that's what it's going to be. We had overslept, and so the pigs were already on their feet by the time that we got inside the wire. So we stalked our way down to a stand that my first trip down I'd killed a boar out of, and I packed in a camera mount. About 5 minutes after the feeder went off, this boar came running in hot, and I was excited because it looked big to me. Of course, they always look really big when they're coming in. And this boar took a beeline toward the feeder, and I just prayed to God that the wind was going to hold. I had my Martin Hunter in 75 pounds and a 950 grain grizzly stick with a nocturnal knock. He rooted around the feeder a little bit, and I was doing my best not to spook him, trying to zen down my heart. Now, if you're not taking a broadside shot, the animal can be out of the way of your arrow by the time that it even gets there. And so I hoped, and I drew, picked a spot, and I let my arrow fly. Kill with sticks.
He's toast. That was quick. He's a good pig.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful pig.
He didn't go far.
You see how I bet you that when we get those blades off, you're going to see what that single bevel does. Because I think I shot him straight through both shoulders, but I could be wrong. the grizzly stick seems to work. I didn't really have a whole lot of doubt because I've got delusions of grandeur, so I hunt whitetail with Cape buffalo tackle. But I'm pretty sure that I broke his shoulder with that and got a full pass through, but oh yeah, I thought so. Single bevel, straight through the shoulder blade. At least he's got good cutters. Got his last meal in there, and he did not go. Shoot my rangefinder through here to the feeder. See how far he went. He went 42 yards, and that was it. I couldn't have asked for a better shot. Hashtag tradlife, I guess. The grizzly stick did what it needed to do, and I'm kind of glad that I hunt with delusions of grandeur, because I'm pretty sure that I broke the far shoulder with that single bevel broadhead. I was actually using an Ashby head on this one. Me hunting whitetail with Cape buffalo tackle, but it sure worked on this pig. He's got real good cutters in him, which is much better than the last one that I had. Kill with sticks. I can't believe it. Couldn't have asked for a better hog here, and hunted my ass off yesterday with the spears, and maybe we'll try and go get another one, but if not, I'm just so glad to have this one, because that was just cool. I don't know how else to say it. Being close to animals is a thrill. Shoot, I don't know what the heck we're gonna do, because I was afraid this was gonna be an 11th hour affair again. Kill with sticks. As we were walking back down to the stand after getting the boar that I'd shot out, I spotted a blonde boar through the trees, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make the stalk, and Tripper hadn't got a big boar yet. So we swung around, and I managed to get the camera into position behind him just in time to center the boar in the frame.
36 yards. As fast as he went down, I'm sure I hit him in the heart. It's a big old pig. Great big old boar.
Here's a shoulder off my boar. Let's see if we can double up. I still think it was super awesome me ninjaing over them rocks. That was a plan that was just dumb enough to work. I almost never tried to. Finding the hogs wasn't the problem. Finding a lone hog that was asleep down on the creek banks was a problem.
Tread life, yo.
Made it through the oak tree.
Right here where I'm standing. There's a hole right there.
Too late now. Whether with the bow or with the spear, I just couldn't get within trad life range on the ground, with the leaves being so crunchy, and we were hunting against the clock, so I decided that I was happy with the boar that I had. And it can be very chaotic when you're a YouTuber that has to live in real life. At this moment, I'm in Kansas, crashing at Tripper's house. Basically hunted most of today, road tripped here, and then I'm going to be heading home back to central Illinois in the morning. We could not get anywhere as close to ethical range for traditional archery of those pigs. They were wired for sound, they were up and about and alert, and I was perfectly happy with the pig that I got early in the morning. And so, basically, when you're hunting against the clock and you have to get back to real life, it makes vlogging really difficult. So that's why I'm here, and this seems completely random and abrupt that I'm already back in Kansas because we had to make sure that we got everything packed. We cleaned up the bunkhouse to be good clients of the lodge, and basically road tripped the whole way here. And I always start out hunting trips super wired and excited, and rapidly Tripper will point the camera at me, and it's like, I don't know what to say. Just a string of profanity. And so far, it has been an awesome trip. It has been a great hunt. Now, whether or not you choose to believe that what I did is hunting, that's up to you. I would challenge you to do it and then pass judgment on it. Is it fair chase free range hunting? No. Is it a canned hunt? It depends on how you do it. I maintain that it wouldn't really be anything to go to Black Mountain with a rifle and just instantly be successful within 100 yards of the gate. But it appears that I am developing a bit of a spear curse. Hopefully I will be back. Also, not gonna lie, it's literally like you just wish that these pigs would charge. Stop running. Just come at me, bro. So, I'm finishing cutting up the meat from this boar, but I wanted to give you a real good up close look at my boar's cutters and his wetters. And my grizzly stick, other than breaking the nocturnal knockoff, is completely intact. So that's something, especially because for what they actually want for grizzly sticks, you'd think that they were shipping them out with the inside packed with cocaine. However, while it wasn't the biggest boar, what I will say is that the Ashby Broadhead, the grizzly stick slug system, and the momentum shaft worked out exactly as advertised. I broke both shoulders and got a full pass through, and this arrow banged around those trees on its way out of the bore and is completely shootable. All I've got to do is heat this up to take out my slug insert so that I can run a wire down here, knock my nocturnal out, and refletch it. I did not get it done with the spear, but I would rather not throw at all than make a bad throw. But it seems like every time that I go down to Black Mountain, I'm learning more. And so the wetsuit socks worked out pretty good, but I'd like to go back down in the spring and walk in there with the wetsuit socks and the spear and try and find a lone boar sleeping on the creek sand. And maybe things will go wrong and I'll end up getting a good death, but you never know. This boar was good and fat. And so while I do hunt unapologetically for sport, it's not like I don't utilize the meat. So I've been fleshing off the hide today, and I used some of the lard from the hide to fry up the heart. And so I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this here episode of Tex Grebner Outdoors. As always, God bless all my sports and of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. Please check out my friends over at threeriversarchery.com. Thank you very much to those of you involved in law enforcement and those of you serving in the military. And thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.